What's going on YouTube? West Hobbies RC. So today we are back with part 3 of the Goblin Raw 580 build. So on part 2 we left off with getting the head assembled, swash plate assembled, the whole lower frame side assembled, landing skids, all that good stuff. So now we are moving on to the motor mount, motor, and ESC motor belt part of the build. So we are running the X Nova. Of course, we went over this already in the beginning, but we are going with the 4025 1Y 1120 kV as it's a shaft B, and we are running 6S on this helicopter. So we got all of our motor mount parts laid out here. We are going to get set up, get the motor out of the box, and start assembling the motor mount. All right, so we got the motor out, we got the parts out, we are ready to go. First thing I want to touch on, we are using a 5mm motor shaft, okay? If you do not have a 5mm shaft and you have a 4mm shaft, they give you this little brass insert. Now this brass insert would slide over your motor shaft, your 4mm shaft, equal 5mm, and allow you to use the pulley. But since we are running 5mm, we don't need that. It fits perfectly. Okay, so we don't need the little brass insert, and they also give you smaller set screws, but you don't need those, again, because we are using the bigger side. So motor wires are going to face forward. Here's our motor mount plates. Obviously this is the bottom countersunk for the screws. This is the top. It's going to slide. Here's the back of the helicopter. It's going to slide in this way. Motor wires coming forward. So we want motor wires forward. So we are going to position the motor like this. We are going to take the 2.5mm driver, which is what the screws are. Of course, a little bit of Loctite, and we are going to run these screws down. So we're going to get one started, do the other one, and then move on to the next step. Of course, Loctite everything. It fits together perfectly. All right, now do your other two screws and we'll move on to the motor pulley. Next step, we're going to grab our motor pulley, and we are going to make sure we have this flat spot. We are going to line our pulley up with the flat spot. Very important. Now remember, there's two set screws. It doesn't matter which one gets lined up with the flat spot, but what does matter is there's going to be a M4x6, so this is the 6mm set screw, and then there's going to be a 4mm set screw, which is this guy right here. So remember, two different size set screws, 6 and a 4. The 6 is going to go on the flat spot, and the 4 is going to go on the non-flat spot side of the motor. So of course, get your Loctite out. You guys should already know this by now. Everything is going to be Loctited. So we are going to, according to the manual, there's no height measurement, but there is a diagram, and it looks like about that much is sticking out. So we can always loosen it and readjust it later. But get your other set screw, Loctite, run your other set screw down, torque it down, come back, make sure this one's torqued down, get yourself a paper towel with some rubbing alcohol, and clean off the excess Loctite. Let's move on to the next step. Next step is going to be, I believe this is the ESC tray. So you're going to grab your ESC tray, you have this little plastic, and it is going to go like this. Now remember, there is lock nuts underneath this tray, so again, no Loctite. We're just going to go ahead and tighten these screws down. The 2mm driver. Good, grab the next one, tighten it down, and then we can mount this to the actual helicopter. So now it says in the manual, as you can see, we are good. In the manual, it does say on which gearing you are using. So I am using, on this build, the stock 22 tooth pinion or pulley. Also, I just went ahead and threw these two nuts on, washer, and this little bolt. No Loctite on this or these. this is going to be what you push against for tensioning the belt. So I'm assuming this comes back out. Okay, so now we grab the plate that we just screwed down. We grab our motor. So it says if you're using the 22 tooth, use the external holes. So we're going to be screwing to these outside holes. So we're going to run our wire through like this. And then this is going to come and get bolted to here like this. So let's get a screw ready. And we are going to go through the external holes, so outside holes. The adjustability of these kits is incredible. They really thought of everything when they designed and built these kits. They really thought of different head speeds, different pinions that they know everybody's going to run. Because SAB knows that, you know, people are going to build them to their style. And this can be tricky because of the pinion. Or not the pinion, I'm sorry. The motor wires. They're giving me a complicated time. Okay, so run this down. So I am assuming that this is the ESC tray. Okay, tighten this one up now. Okay, now our wires are running through out the bottom like that. They look like that. So now we are ready to slide this entire assembly into the helicopter. All right, so now it's time to mount the motor itself. So we have our motor assembly here. You're gonna have your washers up, which I can see being a problem, and I can see them being a pain and wanting to get stuck. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to flip the helicopter over for a second. You might not be able to see nothing, and I apologize. And then I'm going to flip the helicopter back over so that way the washers don't give me a hard time. I hope you guys seen that. Now we're going to grab our 2mm driver with set screw or with a bolt on it. We're going to grab some Loctite, and we are going to Loctite these bolts down, of course. So we're just going to get one started, help hold it here. And we're going to drop one. Like always, you always have to drop something at some point in time. I don't think you can ever work on anything without dropping it. Okay, so we're just going to run these down. Or run it loosely. Slide it all the way back. Do the same on the other side. And then we are going to get the belt put in place and then tension it. So we're going to do the same on the other side. We're going to run this screw in here. Okay, and then we're just going to slide it all the way back. We're going to snug these up just so they're snug. Now grab your belt and get your belt put into place. Make sure everything looks good and it is lined up like it should be. So now you might have to work the belt in. There we go, belt's on. Look and make sure everything looks good. All right, now let me grab a wrench for these screws and then we're gonna tension this. So I tried to film tensioning the motor, but it was next to impossible. I was flipping the helicopter, couldn't see nothing. But anyway, so you put that screw that goes in here. You're going to stick, I used a 4mm driver, stuck it through here, pulled on the motor, tensioned it back till I got a good tension where the motor feels good. I had it too tight in the beginning, but now it's good. Belt is riding nice and straight and clean. So now it's ESC time. So the ESC mount, I'm assuming, is for a Hobby Wing 200 or a big ESC. We are running the Hobby Wing Platinum 120. And as you can see, the holes line up at the top, but they do not match the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mount a screw up here to get it in place. And then I'm going to drill 2 new holes in the bottom. And that will allow me to bolt the ESC up here. And I will run the battery wires out each side here. The motor wires will fold under like this and tie right into the motor. Be nice and clean. And then we can run the ESC wires to the flybarless unit down the side that we've run all the servo wires down. And then we can screw a fan on top and we are good to go. So I'm going to get these 2 holes drilled and then we'll be back. All right, so we got the ESC mounted. We drilled 2 new holes. We drilled one here and one here. Used the stock factory hardware with the through bolts. So we got that done. We got the Hobby Wing 120. We got the fan mounted, everything Loctited. running the battery wires out the side here. We are going to shorten up these ESC wires so it is a direct run right to the motor so it'll look nice and clean. We will probably put some kind of tubing here to ever stop these wires from shaving. And then we will run the motor wires along whatever side or the battery ESC wires. On the hobby wing, you have your throttle, then you have your RPM for governor, and then you have BEC, an external BEC power. So you have power through here and through here. So 2 different ports of power, which is always good. And then your RPM wire for running like governor in the icon or whatever FBL you're running. This will be icon. So now we can move on to the next step, which is starting the tail grip assembly. So before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and solder up the connectors. So I have motor bullets here that came with the motor, 4 millimeters. I already went ahead and cut off about, I don't know, 1/2 inch of wire or so because I want a nice direct run to the motor. So it'll come up under here real nice and neat. Tie right into the motor. We'll put some kind of tubing here to stop them from ever shaving. And then I'm going to go ahead and solder up the battery connectors while I'm at it. So that way all soldering is done and we can completely move on to the next step and ESC is completely wired, mounted, and soldered up. So we got the motor wires soldered up, heat shrunk, plugged in. So now I left them a little long so I didn't have to worry about them shaving. So we'll just tidy them up so they look nice and neat. And then we're running EC5s. Got the connector soldered up. I'm going to wait to put the actual connector on until I figure out if this is the exact way I'm going to route the wires, if I'm going to pull them out the top and bring them over, because once the connectors are on, it's a pain to get them EC5s back off. So now it's time to move on to the tail. So we're going to set the actual helicopter aside, and we're going to get all the stuff out for the tail part. So now we're going to assemble the tail grips and shaft. So we have all the parts laid out here. I already went ahead and cleaned the machining oil off of the screws, and I've already packed the thrust bearings with some of the micro lube that they call for. So that's all done. So now we are ready to start assembling. So the first thing we are going to do is we're going to want to assemble the actual tail shaft and grips. So we're going to take our shaft. We're going to go ahead and slide it through here. We're going to take an O-ring, and it's going to be O-ring inserted here. And then you're going to want to put an O-ring on the other side in the same location. Push this O-ring down inside of here, which can be a little tricky, a little tight, but you can get it down in there. I would recommend doing one side at a time. Okay, get that shaft pushed through. So now we are going to take a grip, or I'm sorry, now we're going to take a copper washer. Let's insert a copper washer. And then we're going to insert a shim. They give you a couple, I think 2 shims for each side. Yeah, 2 shims. We're going to start with 1 is what the manual calls for. 1 shim if I can ever get it on. We're going to start with 1 shim if I can ever get it on. And then we will take our grip. We're going to slide our grip on. Okay, and then we're going to take a copper washer, drop it down in there, just like that. And we'll take a 1.5 millimeter driver to assemble the thrust bearings. So there's a smaller inner diameter and a larger. So we're going to do thrust bearing. This is the smaller one first. We are going to take our thrust bearing that's already packed, drop it down, remember open side in, and then we're going to take our larger larger outside bearing, and then we're going to take this whole assembly and drop it down into place. Okay, and then take your screw, which is a 2.5 millimeter driver, put a little bit of blue Loctite, and then assemble. Now it is normal for the shaft to be longer on one side versus the other side. Tighten this down. Okay, and then once we get the other side assembled now, we'll torque them both down and we will have this part of the grip assembled. So we got this assembled, we did the other side. They say in the manual that it is normal for these to be tight and that the preload is tight in the beginning and they will loosen up after a few flights. So we'll see about that. a little tighter than I would like, but they said it's normal. So we'll move on to the next step. Next step is going to be we can start here first. So we're going to take the 1.5 millimeter driver, tiny screw. We're going to come in from the outside and use some retaining compound. So we'll put a dab of retaining compound on here, come in from the outside and put your ball links on. So these guys right here, and you will use a 1.5 millimeter driver and a 2 millimeter driver. So go ahead and tighten these down. You'll do the same on the other side. And then you can move on to this step right here, which you're going to take your little plastic arm. There's going to be a little insert. Put that insert in and pull the screw back out. You should have something that looks like this. And then you're going to take the side that has the recess in it. Get your 1.5 millimeter driver again. They're calling for some retaining compound, so put a dab of retaining compound on it. And then go ahead and run the bolt through. Just like this. Okay. And then do the same on the other side. And then slide this through here. Put a little bit of micro lube and connect your ball link up to here. So now we're going to assemble the tail casing. So now you'll notice the two cutouts here and here. So we're going to start with putting on the little, whatever this little piece here is called. So we're going to put this on. It's going to be a 2 millimeter driver. Get that put in, and then we can move on to the tail fin. So you're going to notice that you can run this through. We're going to use blue Loctite, and you're going to want to install it this way. Let me get it started for a second, and then I can show you. So run these screws down, and then, so now you'll have it looking like this. Grab the next screw, tighten that down. Now we're going to start with the tail casing. So we're going to go ahead and grab our little 90 degree. This is I guess the bell crank base. It's going to go to the top hole right here. And then we are going to go, sorry guys, I don't mean to keep knocking you around, but we're going to go through this hole and then tighten the next screw down. We already Loctited our screws, so make sure you Loctite them. We're going to get the other screw put in and then move on to the next one. Grab your bell crank, and I might be doing this out of order, but that's okay. Grab your small little M2 by 5 millimeter screw, 1.5 millimeter driver. They want retaining compound. A little bit of retaining compound on there. We're going to go through the long side hole here, and we're going to grab the ball end that does not have a bolt coming out of it. You're going to grab a 2 millimeter driver, the other end of the ball, tighten this down. Okay, so then now you're going to grab the ball that has threads coming out of it, and you're going to use blue Loctite. We're going to grab a washer, which this washer is too big. Grab the other washer. No, this is the right washer. Yeah, grab this washer. A little bit of blue Loctite. Actually use what's left on the bottle. And then we are going to go through the top of this and tighten this down like this. And then now our bell crank assembly is done. Now we can take it and install this like this. So we're going to take some retaining compound and put retaining compound on the threads like this. And we might need to wait. Yeah, we do. So you're going to want to wait to bolt this on because this is going to slide into here like this. So now we need to grab our tail belt, slide it through here. So take your belt and you're going to want to slide it through your tail casing. Get your pulley ready. So the side with the set screw is going to go towards the side with the fin. So get your pulley put on the belt. Okay, get this slid into the tail housing. Now grab your tail shaft that you just already assembled. Now you see that little indent there? That's where your set screw is going to ride into. So once we get this pushed in, you'll notice, if you can see that, there you go. Now you're going to take the set screw, which is going to be a 2mm. Get yourself some blue Loctite on that set screw. And we're going to go all the way around the set screw to make sure we get a good grip, good bond. Okay, and then now we're going to try to do this so where you guys can see it and I can see it at the same time. So now we are going to, where'd you go? Okay, so now we're going to see where that lines up. And we are going to start our threads. And you can feel it when it grabs. Okay, you can see how I'm holding it. It has grabbed. Now tighten it down. Now this is on and good. Now we can install the bell crank. So now grab the bell crank. We already put some retaining compound on the bolt. We'll put a little bit more. So now we're going to take the bell crank and we're going to put the little washer here. Slide that little guy down. Okay, and then make sure you have this side facing up. This ball end here is going to sit into here, just like this. And then we are going to slide the bolt down, get it started. Okay, it's going to be a 2.5mm driver. Run this all the way down until we get threads coming out the top side, which we do. Now you're going to want to put a lock nut on there and tighten the lock nut down. And then once you get it all tightened down, it should look something like this. So I'm going to go ahead, lock all that down, and we'll throw the tail fin on. Quick little note, don't be like me. I put the boom on in the wrong spot. Or not the boom, but the tail fin. I put the tail fin on with these two holes. Tail fin goes on towards the back because those two holes there and there are what slide into the tail boom and get bolted on to the tail boom. So now we're going to move on to the tail boom. But make sure when you put the tail fin on itself that it goes into the back two holes, not these two holes. So your tail casing setup should look like this. All right, so now we're going to start on the tail boom. We got the tail boom out, and we are running the Torque BLSO74T. I already went ahead and got the servo horn. 18mm is what you want from the center of the servo screw to your actual ball link. So we're going with the metal Torque servo horns all the way around on this helicopter. So that's already taken care of. So now it's time to mount the servo to the actual bracket. So the bracket is going to sit in the helicopter like this, and the servo is going to sit in the bracket like this. So it's going to sit like that, and this is going to bolt up into the helicopter like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done real quick. Also, I know I touched on this before, but you need these little servo spacers. If you're going to be running these servos, they slide right into there and make up the gap. So you have to get these spacers if you're running this kit and building this, because you want to hard mount your servos and you don't want slop. What's going to happen if you don't run those spacers is you're going to have slop and you're not going to get a tight fit with the spacers. You get a nice and tight fit. They fall into place, and I can show you when I'm done. Like that, run your screw through, and you're good to go. So we're going to mount the tail servo. We went ahead and got our servo mounted. As you can see, we did not use the carbon fiber plates that are included because of the washers that we used. So if you notice, we used a beauty ring style washer countersunk, and with the carbon plates put on top of there, it was only like 2 or 3 threads into the actual mount, and I was not happy with that. So we just went with these spacers, which are solid and secure. So now we're going to mount the servo. So to mount the servo, we are going to go in through the top with our 2.5mm driver. There's 2 holes right here. It's going to go into these 2 holes forward. It can only go one way. It just fits right there. You're going to run your bolt through. Run this screw down. Don't tighten it up yet. Just snug it. Grab your next screw. Put, of course, Loctite. Clean them. They had a little bit of machining oil on them. Some screws have machining oil on them. Some don't. So I've just been cleaning all of them with rubbing alcohol just to be on the safe side. I want a good, clean bond. I want to make sure that these screws and the Loctite do their job. It takes a few extra minutes to clean all the screws, but well worth it. So now we're going to torque these down. And there we go. So now our tail servo is mounted. So now we can move on to running the belt through the boom. So we got the boom out here. As you can see, SAB SAB heli division. You're going to notice there is 2 holes on each side of the boom in the back and a slot on the front. So the side of the boom with the slot is going to go into the helicopter. The side of the boom with the 2 holes on each side is what your tail casing is going to go on. So what we are going to do is, I've mentioned this in other videos, but get yourself a piece of piano wire, push rod material. It's about a 30-inch piece. On one end, I have just a little U-shaped bend in it, and the other end is regular. And this is what I use to get my belts through all my tail booms. So what we are going to do is we are going to insert this. Hopefully it's long enough. And if not, it should be at least long enough, okay? So now you can see it come out here. It is not exactly long enough, but I can still grab it with my finger. So we are going to move stuff out of our way here, and we're going to take our belt and we are going to clip it onto this end like this. Just enough for it to grab. We are going to push to where we can grip it with our finger. And sometimes you can take a little bit of painter's tape, which I do, especially on the big booms or the big belts. And what we can do here is just take this painter's tape, wrap it around the boom like this. And that way we can push till the wire comes out the end here. And we can gently and easily pull. It's very difficult to do so everybody can see it. But then we're just going to pull till our boom comes out the other end. So now we are going to insert casing in. Our bolts line up. So let's quickly grab a screw we already pre-assembled with Loctite. 2mm driver. Run it down. Okay, go to the other end where we zip tie or painter's taped. So now our belt is pulled tight. Pull the tape off, put your other 3 screws in, and your belt is through the boom. Now it's time for installing the boom clamps, I guess they're called. But I already went ahead. There's this little 3D printed bracket that they give you, and it is to hold the tensioner up and out of the way. So that way it's really nice. You just hold the tensioner, push it, clip it into place, and it allows the tensioner to stay out of the way while you're putting these clamps in. So you're gonna grab this clamp here. It looks like this. And we want the bolt side down. So you're gonna wanna go ahead and you get 2 bolts, 2.5mm, or what are they, 3mm? 3mm, and a nut on the back side. So go ahead and get that started. Once you have those in, just start them, don't tighten them down. That way you don't have to mess with it while it's in the actual helicopter. So this one is going to go in this way. So it's going to go in, this is the groove for your boom to slide into, and it is going to go into the helicopter this way. Your bolts are going to go through here. So if you notice in the very front of the helicopter, there is 2 bolt holes left right here, right behind the idler, and that is where these are going to go. So go ahead and put that into place. Grab your 2.5mm driver with your screws. Make sure they are Loctited, and run them down into place. Go ahead and tighten these brackets up. So you're going to tighten this one up, and then do the same on the back bracket. You are going to, on the back one, you're going to put this little insert in here like this. Get that insert put in. It's going to look like that. And then the SAB logo is going to face outward. So this one is going to go right here, and you're going to do the same. You're going to grab your 2.5 millimeter driver, grab a 3 millimeter bolt, and go ahead and screw it down just like this. Run the other one down and tighten both of them up. All right, so we got both of those tightened up. Now we're going to grab our tail boom, and we are going to push our belt through and going to get this boom started on the first. I use a little bit of rubbing alcohol on that little rubber there to help with getting it to slide. The rubbing alcohol will evaporate. Your boom belt so your belt's going to be running this way, and it needs to be twisted this way. So when you run the boom through, make sure you twist it properly, so when you spin your head clockwise, your tail spins counterclockwise. Now push the boom, and it'll fit into that little groove. And then you're going to want to pull down on the belt, push the boom more forward, and get it to where it will come down and around that front pulley underneath there where my fingers are. So now we can pull the belt back a little bit, and then we will get the tensioner assembly on here that's next and tension the belt properly. But you can go ahead and wait to pull this until we get the proper tension. Now that we got the boom tensioner tool on here, we're just going to grab a 3 millimeter and turn this set screw, or this actual screw here, until we tension the belt to where we're happy. And then we lock the boom down. So we're going to feel belt tension. Feels pretty good. Turn the head. Feels a little tight, so let's loosen that off. That feels pretty good. A little loose. Okay, happy there. Now grab your 2.5 millimeter and lock these two screws down on the clamps. This will hold the boom in place. Oops, sorry guys. Don't mean to knock into you. Sometimes it's hard to work with the camera right here. Okay, lock these into place. And then once you're done with that, go ahead and pull your clamp itself off. Take your 3 millimeter. We are done with the clamp. And then you save this for later, whenever you need it again. All right, so I think we're gonna wrap up part 3 here. We got the helicopter on its skids. We got the boom on. We got the complete tail grip and assembly together. Everything is moving like it should. Make sure, again, like I said before, that your rotor is going to spin counterclockwise. Double check in the manual, but 99% of helicopter rotor spins counterclockwise. Or clockwise, I'm sorry. Your rotor spins clockwise and your tail spins counterclockwise. So as you spin your main rotor, your tail rotor should spin counterclockwise. That's how you know you have the belt together or not together, but you have the belt twisted properly. And also make sure that when you are putting your belt through the boom, that there's not multiple twists, because then you can create frequency vibrations and all that kind of stuff. So make sure it's straight, and then you do your one twist, and then double check by spinning the rotor clockwise, and the tail will go counterclockwise. So now we're going to wrap this video up. It's already pretty long. Part 4 will be getting the rest of the little stuff done and getting ready to get the FBL on, all that. We need to still make the tail push rod, which we're going to do next. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching these build videos. I know they're long. It's a lot to fit into one video per part. I'm trying my best to make them as short as I can. There's just a lot to do and not make a 20 video series. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys are enjoying these videos. Give this video a like, subscribe, take care, and have a great day.